Hi, this is Jennie Walker and welcome to Closet Conversations. Today marks the 17th year I've been selling on the eBay platform. I joined in April of 2003 and started by selling designer items out of my own closet that I wasn't wearing anymore when I was going through a downturn in my income and turned to eBay for a little extra. And one of the first things I ever sold was a pair of white leather Prada boots. This was back when things were on auction. This was back in the early days. And this is back when I did not know what I was doing. And I totally undercalculated the shipping because I didn't factor for an international buyer. And so my Prada boots, which sold for under what I would have liked for just a little over $100, it was going to cost me most of that money to ship them to Australia. So that was one of those learnings, but nonetheless, I've come a long way since those early days. I'm now selling on eBay all the time as a professional reseller. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is how to work with eBay to provide them your seller's permit and resale certificate information so you can avoid paying sales tax. Now, last year, all the rules changed around online selling. The states rolled out these programs where they were now going to be collecting sales tax for online sales. I don't think every state has opted into that yet, but where states are collecting sales tax, that is taking place now. And also, as a result, they were told through this mandate that the selling platforms were responsible for collecting that sales tax on behalf of the states. So that's really great because prior to that, you had to report and collect your own sales tax and deal with that with each state with your quarterly sales tax reporting information. And now when you do those reports, you're able to document the fact that eBay collected X amount of dollars on my behalf, and then that's deducted from the amount you would have to pay. Let's say if you had collected sales tax in store format versus what's online, anything that any of the online platforms have collected for you, you deduct that portion when you're doing your sales tax quarterly reports. All that said, one of the things you can do with eBay now because of this new system is set up as a reseller so that you no longer have to pay tax when you buy items for resale. Now, prior to this time, you would have to negotiate that with each individual seller to see if they would accept that certificate and be willing to go through that process, because it is a process. So if you are a seller and you agree to accept the seller's permit, you would then be responsible at tax time accounting for that amount of sales tax that you didn't collect by putting in a special section about the amount of inventory that was sold to resellers. And then you would have to have the resale certificate that that person filled out on file and always with you in your books in case you were ever audited. So it's a whole thing. But now it's so much simpler because eBay and other online platforms are now required to be that intermediary and collect that sales tax. So now eBay is the point person at which you can provide your resale certificate, and then they will make sure that you are not charged tax. So for me, I just set this up, which is why I wanted to talk about it. I am registered in the California state for my company, Jenniegirl, and I have my seller's permit from the Board of Equalization. I have my seller's permit number. So I have that certificate. In addition to that certificate, I had to fill out a form called the General Resale Certificate, which is for the state of California, where you certify or purchasing from eBay, you provide their information, you provide your permit number, you talk about the items that you resell and the description, you certify it, sign it, date it, put your information, phone number, and call it a day. So this is something you can set up quite easily with eBay. There is a section inside eBay where you can fill this out, and what you do basically is go in and say you want to set this up, and then you upload your seller's permit number, fill out a form. Depending on what state you're in, they'll require this resale certificate form to be filled out. So in the state of California, I was required to fill both out. I wasn't sure about that, so I only provided my seller's permit, and they did get back to me and say you do need to fill out this additional certificate. I then got back to them and said, well, is this for each sale? Who do I list as the person I'm buying from? And then they clarified that I needed to indicate it was eBay and gave me an address to put on the certificate and then put that in. And once I resubmitted the seller's permit and the resale certificate, I was immediately approved. So what this means is that now, whenever I purchase items on eBay for resale through this account, they will not charge sales tax. And that's terrific. So that means they will then be responsible for accounting for the people who are resellers who bought from them for the purpose of resale when it comes tax time, and then the burden's on them. And I thought this was just terrific because I recently bought something and I did pay sales tax, and I reminded myself that I had needed to fill this out. So why pay sales tax if you don't have to? Every state is not instituting sales tax. Every state doesn't have sales tax. But this is something that's a really good idea to set up so that you're just protected no matter what. You don't have to be surprised. If it's something's $100, you're in a tax, it's 10%. That's $10 that you're paying that you don't have to. If you could be in a state that's more than 10% or less than 10%, and if you're buying something that's hundreds of dollars, that can add up. And if you're buying a lot of inventory over time, that can add up. So I wanted today to know that on eBay you can provide your information to them to avoid paying sales tax on items you're buying for resale. Now, if you're not buying to resell it, you should use a different account with eBay. And this is what they tell you to do if it's something for yourself personally, so that you make sure you don't break the rules. You need to have a different account through which you buy something. You have to set up a second account where this certificate has not been associated with it. Also, if you have yet to apply for your seller's permit and you are a reseller, you need to do that with your state because each state has a program for doing this. From what I remember, because it's been a little while since I got mine, I'm looking right now and it says 2016 when I set this up in the state of California. And by the way, when I lived in New York, I had a reseller certificate for the state of New York. But when I moved here, I set this up in 2016, it says, and you basically Google for your state, just Google the state of, if I didn't know where to start, I'd say California State Board of Equalization Seller's Permit Application, and then it would direct me to where I can fill out that form and get that information to them. I don't think there's a fee, honestly, but I can't really remember, but I'm pretty sure there's not a fee, but I could be wrong. So you'll just have to see when you look it up for your state if there's a fee involved. If so, it's going to be minor. But this is a really important thing to be doing. And if you are reselling as a hobbyist, you haven't gotten to this point, I know a lot of people don't buy from a source that's going to charge tax. So if you're buying at the Goodwill Bins or you're buying at a thrift shop where they're nonprofit entities, they're not going to charge you sales tax anyway. But if you are buying from, let's say, an estate that's being liquidated where they have estate resellers there, if you're buying from an eBay, if you're buying from Poshmark. Now, Poshmark has not set this up yet, but my hope is that they will down the road. So let's not talk about Poshmark at this point because they're not set up for it. But on eBay, they are set up for it. And eBay is a wonderful place to be sourcing for things for reselling. Now, if you're one of these low volume, high priced sellers who's looking for really important pieces like what I do that are super rare vintage and things like that, it's a really great place to look for it. And it's a really great way to find things at a price that you can make a profit on. If you're someone who's more of a high volume, low dollar seller, it'd be a little harder to find things on eBay like one at a time, but you can find lots. You can actually ask people to put things into lots for you. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So eBay is a wonderful resource, and certainly now with a lot of people working from home in a way they didn't before, and the ability to go into thrift shops is temporarily halted for a lot of people. Shopping online is a really important way to get inventory, and not having to pay sales tax on top of that, if that happens to apply to your state, is a really good thing to avoid. And that's it. That's all I wanted to tell you today. Is get your resale certificate going. Look into it. It can't hurt anything. If you decide that's not for you, that's fine. If you are moving into the professional category, you definitely need to be looking at this, because paying sales tax on top of everything else that you're paying just doesn't make any sense. So you want to find a way to avoid that. So check it out. See if that applies to you. See if it makes sense. See if you're ready to do that, because once you open up this can of worms, basically you're on the radar as you're now a professional seller. So this has to be right for you. You have to be someone who's doing this, claiming this income on your taxes. If you're in that category, then this is a great thing to make sure you're doing. If you're a hobbyist and you're not prepared to be in this category, then I would not suggest this for you until you're ready to be someone who wants to be accountable for this income that they're making, and be someone who's reporting that on their taxes. And that's it. This is Jennie Walker with Closet Conversations. I appreciate your time. You can find me on all social media at Jennie Girl's Closet on Instagram. My new website is up and going. You can sign up for my reseller newsletter at jenniegirlscloset.com. And I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to being with you on a future episode. If you like the song you heard at the beginning, it's called Black Hat, written and recorded by Jennie Walker and Tommy Farragher. It's from the album Night Flight to London, and it's available on iTunes worldwide now.